Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is mindset, and the title is The Fast Food of Self-Care. So that line is actually from a discussion I had with a client today, and I just thought it was totally badass. And so I was definitely going to steal that from them. So I told them I'd give them credit. So here's your credit. So I did not originate it, but I love that phrasing. So, actually, before we get into today's podcast, I actually wanted to say thank you to everybody. So, thank you to the listeners, and kind of just give you an idea. So far this year, as of today, it's October 25th. So, I'm doing these podcasts a little bit ahead of time to give myself some margin for some trips and vacations and whatnot. So, but anyhow, so as of October 25th, we've had 40 some thousand downloads just this year. And we've reached 48 out of 50 states in the United States, which is pretty badass. That's pretty cool. And actually, 20% of our listeners are from the outside the U.S. So UK, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, Sweden, Spain, and many, many more. So thank you all for listening. So I think it's really fun and it's exciting for me. So it's maybe like personal gratification, but it's cool to see the podcast being listened to all over the United States. So like I said, 48 out of 50 states. And then it's insanely just remarkably cool. I never even would have thought that there would be listeners outside of the U.S. So it's pretty cool that 20% of the listeners are actually from outside the U.S. So thank you to the listeners and our patrons who financially support the podcast, because I genuinely appreciate when you've shared the podcast, discussed the podcast, when you've signed up to become a patron to the podcast, everything you've done to help this reach more people, because that was the goal, was hopefully that, I mean, this is the truth of it is even if only one person listened, but it added health and happiness to their life, that would fulfill me for the purpose of what this podcast was for, was a way to just take the experiences and knowledge that I've been gifted in my life and be able to share it into others' lives. And I'm so grateful for all of you that that has been achieved, and that it's being achieved on such a large scale, which is pretty cool. So I just wanted to let you know that by you participating, by you listening, it's helped spread the podcast and actually helping people, like I said, all across the United States and all across the world, which is kind of sounds weird to say, but that is really cool. So thank you very much. I'm truly appreciative. Okay, so for today's podcast, like we said, the title is The Fast Food of Self-Care. And what this kind of came up with, like the reason why this phrasing came up, was the client and I were talking about why they couldn't just kind of like flip the switch to living a healthier life. So this client has been they're actually a certified personal trainer. They've been out of shape, then got in shape, then got back out of shape. So they've kind of lived the life that it took to get in shape at one point in time. They know all of the information. I mean, they're certified and they're a trainer themselves. So we were just kind of discussing and they even love working out. So they love working out, they love the gym, they love equipment, they love the science and the kind of the intricacies behind training. They love everything about a healthy lifestyle. But right now they're not living their best healthy lifestyle. And they're unsure of why they can't just flip the switch and make the change. And what we discussed was that possibly they don't have enough margin to start making the changes. And what we mean by that is, when you want to take on a healthy lifestyle, that often goes against our natural instincts. So our natural instincts are to sit on the couch and eat junk food and just watch TV. So our bodies are kind of designed and built to conserve energy and be lazy. Now, that's different degrees to different people in terms of mental states. So some people are more mentally driven than others. Some people kind of just can't sit on the couch. They're too fidgety and they want to go out and do something. But that's a lot of like mental aspect to it. Physically, we are all meant to kind of store energy, and that's the way our body works and whatnot. And even for people who live healthy lifestyles, even for the people who can't sit for a long time. So I remember like my dad, I always asked him like on days off work why he doesn't sleep in. He's like, I just can't lay in bed any longer. And in my mind, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, what are you talking about? Who can't lay in bed? Like, laying in bed and sleeping in is like the most glorious thing ever. So, like, what do you mean you just can't lay in bed any longer? That's like saying I just can't eat any more ice cream. It doesn't exist. Okay, so sometimes people are made like that. I don't know what the hell's wrong with them or how they got lucky and got that gene, but even those people need to have space in their life to take on the challenges that they want to face. And by trying to live a healthier lifestyle, that is a choice of actions. So it's a choice to not eat food that we maybe want. It's a choice to exercise when we'd rather sit on the couch. So it's a choice to do action. So we have to have room, we have to have margin in our life to make those choices, to make the choices to challenge ourselves. So that's what living a healthy lifestyle is. It's a challenge to yourself to kind of go against our natural urges. Well, if your regular life, if your relationships, your work, all the stress you have to deal with, finances, all these things, if they maximize your ability to take on challenges, then there's no room left to take on the challenge of eating healthy, to take on the challenge of exercising when you maybe don't feel like it. So without some type of margin, it's hard for us then to take on more challenge. Kind of makes sense? So the client was saying that when they get home, they have a routine of things they do to kind of help them kind of unwind for the day. And one of the things is drinking some wine. And they said typically when they drink wine, they also start to eat. And when they eat and they start feeling good, not like feeling like healthy and happy. I guess happy, yes, but not healthy. So by feeling good means they're finally getting over the stress of the day, the depression of the day. They're kind of feeling more jovial, more excited. They start joking more with family members. They just kind of feel more and more themselves. And when they start feeling good, they continue to eat more and more and more. And we were kind of saying, why is that the case? Like, they were assuming that as they felt good, they would then have the ability to maybe say no to the food. But really what the food is, it's a drug. So the wine they're drinking is a drug, the food they're eating is a drug, and it's giving them happy hormones. So when their body starts to feel happy for a part of the day, and it's like, oh my gosh, like this feels so good, I finally feel like myself. The body is then going to say, well, keep doing whatever's making us feel this way because this feels good. So if it's food, keep eating food. If it's wine, keep drinking wine. The body's going to send the signal for more and more and more. So again, when you diet or you try to restrict food, that is a temporary restriction of feeling good. So it's kind of like you restrict feeling good in the moment to feel good later. So delayed gratification. Well, if our whole damn day is just misery and stress, and we're complaining, we're tired of everybody and everything, we're just tired physically as well. If the whole day is stress and challenge, then the second we have a chance to feel good, our body's going to chase after that, right? Kind of makes sense. So you have to have margin in order to choose to pass up on instant gratification. So if we don't feel good most of the time, it's harder then to voluntarily deny ourselves feeling good. So what we need to do is if we're having trouble flipping the switch, if we're having trouble making changes to healthier lifestyles, then it's possible that we don't have margin in our life to take on the challenge of that, to deny ourselves more pleasure when we're already not getting enough pleasure. So part of creating that margin then is utilizing our self-care. Are we getting the most quality out of our self-care? So for example, I was talking with somebody recently and they challenged me on the concept of meditation. So they were asking, do you ever just sit down and take the time to think? And I said, yeah. I'm thinking when I'm driving, I think while I work out, I think while I do this, I think while I do that. And they said, no, I mean, like, actually sit down and stop moving. And I'm like, well, I'm not technically moving much while I'm driving. So, but no, I don't sit and just kind of like stare into space and don't move to meditate. I never have done that. And when I was younger and tried it, I didn't really understand what meditation was. I thought it was trying to think of nothing, which anytime you say, I want to think of nothing, means you're automatically going to think of something. It's that elephant in the room type concept. So it's kind of funny is when I was younger and I tried to meditate, I thought it was that where you had to make those okay symbols with your hands and go home, home, stuff like that. So, I've come a long way, and I still have a long way to go, that's for sure. But so I never really was great at sitting down and meditating. The other thing is when I would sit down, I would just fall asleep because I wasn't doing anything. I've had sleeping issues my entire life, and we've talked about that in past podcasts. So I'm always very tired in the sense to where like if I sit down and don't do anything and no one talks to me, within 3 minutes I'll be passed out snoring. So it's been kind of funny with friends because they all know that anywhere we drive somewhere, if they're not talking to me, I'm going to fall asleep. Or if we're sitting and watching a movie and I'm not super excited about the movie, or I'm not kind of at peak interest, I'll fall asleep during the movie. So it's happened many, many times. They're all used to me. But I have a hard time sitting still and doing nothing. And I know meditation isn't technically doing nothing, it's a restorative act, but it's hard to physically do nothing. So they challenged me and they said, well, do you think you're getting as much out of your meditation when you're active versus if you would be passive? And I said, you know what? I'm probably not. So I think they're right. That I might get more of a restorative feeling if I were to do truly passive, kind of like not moving around type meditation. And I'm going to challenge myself to take on doing so to see if I can feel a difference. And that was something that, to me, is if you think of are we getting the most out of our self care, I might have been taking time to meditate. I might have been taking time to think. So if I get in the car and I turn the radio off, typically we all would think, well, that's time for me to think. I'm giving myself mental space to think. Well, you're still driving, you're still doing things. So some of your mental space is still busy. You might try to meditate and all of a sudden somebody cuts you off in traffic and all of a sudden you're dropping every four-letter word you know. and your calming meditation has now been disrupted. So there are a lot of things that can get in the way, even during like a kind of like what would be like a passive activity in the sense of like kind of almost like a non-deep thought activity. So it would be better though, probably, to truly sit still and do meditation. I might get more from my meditation. So if I'm going to take 10 minutes to sit in the car silently, I might get more out of that if I do 10 minutes of just sitting still, not in the car. So I'm going to challenge myself and see if that makes a difference. So that's a way that possibly, with the amount of time I take already to give myself self-therapy and self-care, I might be able to get more margin created out of what I already do. So rather than me thinking I have to add something to my life to create margin, maybe the time I'm taking to do things I currently do can be improved upon. So that's that concept of the fast food of self-care. So she said, typically what I do now for self-care is quick and easy. But quick and easy doesn't often lead to long-term results. So fast food, for example, is quick and easy. It gets you calories in your face right now. But is fast food the healthiest food for us? No. So they might be choosing to do self-care, which is great. Just like choosing to eat is a good thing. Okay? So they're choosing to do self-care, but maybe what they're choosing to do in their self-care isn't the best quality. So one of the things that they talked about as well was just the idea of working out, and that oftentimes people would look at people, say, such as myself. I own a gym. I've been exercising now for 19 years and like 10 months. I'm almost next month will be 20 years for me. So on my birthday, it'll be 20 years of exercising. And in 20 years, I've only ever missed, the most amount of time I missed in one segment has been 7 days. And I only missed that twice. So I've only ever taken a week off of exercise twice in 20 years. That's pretty bonkers. So she said, when you often would look at people such as myself, they would say, well, exercise comes so natural to you, it's so easy. And I was like, no, it isn't. Like, hold on a second now. So I remember, for example, for me to exercise, as much as I love it, even like I own a gym, it's what I do all day is teach people how to exercise. I'm in the gym all day, but it still requires margin for me to exercise. Exercise is something that helps me feel good when I'm done, but it still takes effort to start the workout. I have to have space, meaning if I'm dead tired and I'm unmotivated, I don't just start working out and feel good. I need some motivation to start. I need some energy to start. I can't start exercising from completely worn out. So even someone who owns a gym, even for somebody who's been lifting for 20 years, has only ever missed taking a week off at a time, okay, only twice. I still need margin. I still need something to pull from to start the workout. So I remember when I started my gym, I was training clients from 7 a.m. to noon and then from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. So that was 12 hours a day that I was training clients. I then had to do the workouts, the programming for every single client. I had to do the nutrition for every single client. I had to do accounting for the day. I had to do the janitorial work. I had to do the maintenance work. I had to do all the stuff that you typically would have to do to run a business on top of training 12 hours of clients a day. There was nothing left of me. So when I first started the gym, the first 3 years or so, I was maybe working out twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. And this was coming from a person who used to work out 7 days a week. So I maybe would take a day off, maybe two would be kind of weird. I'd feel like I was a lazy ass if I took 2 days off a week. So there I was going from that type of mentality of 5 being a bad week down to just 2 or 3. And the reason why was because 12 hours of clients plus all the other crap I had to do, there was nothing left. There was no margin, zero, zilch, nothing. There was nothing left to work with. So working out again at the end of it is a restorative act for me. I feel better. I feel like I can handle more stress. I feel like I can not punch everybody in the face from anger. So I feel refreshed after working out. But it still requires that there is something to start the workout with. So I have to have some degree of motivation, some degree of energy. I have to have something to pull from to start the workout. And I remember when I was dealing with depression and anxiety, that was another time. That was actually one of the 7 days that I missed. So one of the weeks that I had off was when I was just having depression and anxiety. At the time, the depression and anxiety in life was kicking my ass. It took everything I had to get out of bed, to go work, to go do social things. There was nothing left for me to pull from to work out. There was nothing left for me to pull from to take on voluntary challenges. My whole damn life felt like a challenge at that time. And there was nothing left, no margin. So, how much margin do you have? If you're struggling to take on a new challenge, possibly related to health and happiness, or take on a new challenge of trying to make a progressive move at work so you can maybe have a better financial future, trying to take on the challenge to maybe restore a beat up, battered relationship with someone that you love. If you're struggling to take on a challenge in your life, it could be because you don't have enough margin to accept that challenge. So what are you doing to create margin? And is what you're doing each day just maybe a band-aid on a wound? Okay, it's getting you by from day to day, but it's not helping you progressively build margin and increase health and happiness over time. If what you're doing every day is barely getting you through the day, then chances are you're relying on fast food of self-care rather than on like kind of the meat and potatoes, the healthy forms of self-care. So fast food of self-care, that looks like wine every night after work. Indulgent eating, eating beyond the calories that you actually need, you're just eating to eat. Eating to get the hormone release, eating to get the happy feeling. Maybe you're doing disconnection. You're relying on reading, television, scrolling on social media. You're kind of just turning the world off, turning away from the world. You're trying to disconnect. And other bad habits like compulsive shopping. So shopping is a form of therapy people use, just like gambling, just like drugs. So we all know drugs like cocaine is probably not a great thing. That's probably not a good way to do self-care, is take like cocaine every day. And you can tell how little I know about drugs. So I just said take cocaine. I think you do cocaine, not take it. But that's what people get into. So typically, we know not to gamble. We know not to do drugs. But what is wine? If you're drinking wine every night, that's a drug. If you're indulgent eating every night, that's a drug. If you're shopping, that's a drug. If you're surfing on social media for an hour or two a day, that's a drug. So we all rely on drugs. We all rely on this outside thing to numb us from the world, to artificially make us happy. But when that thing is gone, we're back to being unhappy. So they're temporary, feel good in the moment forms of self-care, but they're not progressive, improving you over time, building margin forms of self-care. So what are those types of self-care? What are like the meat and potato types of self-care? That's volunteering and giving back to others. Oh, I don't have time to volunteer. You have time to search on social media. You have time to watch television. You have time to sit there, drink wine, read a book, and eat a shitload of food you don't need. You have time. You have time to volunteer. You have time to give back to others. Replace the fast food of self-care with the meat and potatoes of self-care. Okay? Volunteering, giving back to others. Having good conversations with someone you love, where you laugh. You tell jokes, you have fun stories and memories. You're not just bitching about the world and complaining to each other and dumping each other's garbage on yourselves. That's not restorative self-care. Sitting with somebody and bitching and whining about things you don't like in life. That's life. We're not going to like everything about life. If you haven't figured it out, no matter how old you are, it's too damn late to figure that out now. I mean, you're behind the curve, right? So if you don't recognize that life has things in it that you won't like, and if you have yet to accept that, holy shit, are you behind? You will not like everything in life. That is life. That's how it goes. Okay? So don't bitch and whine every day. Don't have repetitive complaints. It's okay to complain. It's okay to vent. It's okay to problem solve on new things that arise, that are causing you stress. But if you're bitching about the same thing every day, shut the hell up. Okay? Accept it or address it. But if you don't accept it and you whine about it every day, if you're not taking actions towards addressing it and you whine every day, ugh, get the hell away from me. And whoever you're whining to, you're just dumping your shit into their life. That's not kind. And if they're doing the same to you, that's not kind of them either. So good conversations that cause laughter, that cause life thoughts. Okay, pondering the meaning of life, pondering what you're doing in life, pondering maybe progressive actions, ideas, wonderments, good memories, good conversation. That's a form of meat and potato self-care. Maybe creating something, painting, maybe working on photography. So I know guys that do welding and woodwork. And that's a great way for them to kind of do some self-care. And that's beneficial, productive, margin building self-care. And working on cultivating an attitude of gratitude, being more grateful for the good things in your life, which will also help you reduce the repetitive complaining. That's a form of self-care, a good self-care. If you haven't yet, listen to podcast 247 about the daily happiness routine that I was using at that time to help me get through depression and anxiety. It was a big help for me. And it's been a big help for other people as well. I stole the idea from an anxiety book. I didn't create it. I just built it on for what was best for me. But that podcast, number 247, can help you learn how to cultivate an attitude of gratitude and be more grateful for the good things in your life. So you can focus on them, nurture them, and grow them, rather than having all your focus on the bullshit and whiny complaints you have every day. So that's what we want to look at. If you are doing self-care now and you don't feel like it's progressively making you happier, you're probably relying on fast food self-care. Wine, alcohol, indulgent eating, disconnection through reading, television, social media, and bad habits like shopping, gambling, or other drugs. You're doing things that are short, quick, feel good in the now, but they don't produce anything and may actually produce negative things in the long run. Instead, we should focus on the meat and potatoes type of self-care, the good stuff. The stuff that not only makes us feel good, but it makes us feel good long term. That's volunteering and giving back to others. Good conversation that involves laughter. Creating something. Having a hobby. Okay, expressing your creativity and ideas and maybe becoming more of who you truly are on the inside. And cultivating an attitude of gratitude, replacing repetitive complaints with being grateful for the good things that you have in your life. Okay? So fast food self-care doesn't build margin over time. It feels good today, but if the effects of it don't last until tomorrow, then it's not worth doing. You're actually doing the wrong stuff. And until you can accept that and address it and change it, nothing will get better. So before you can take on the challenge of healthy eating, the challenge of exercising, you have to switch your self-care over to things that build margin. Okay? So fast food self-care doesn't build margin. It feels like a desperate need per day. Like as soon as you get home, you have to drink the wine. Or as soon as you get home, you have to just tune everybody out and watch your favorite TV show. Or you have to go online and buy this or buy that, even though you don't really need it. So fast food self-care feels like an urgent, desperate need per day. Whereas meat and potato self-care, good, long-term beneficial self-care, it does need done every day for us to continue to build margin. But what you'll quickly find is you'll do it a day or two, you'll build margin, and then all of a sudden you'll get lazy and you'll skip it a day or two. And then you're right back to the beginning. So good, high-quality self-care doesn't have that desperate need feeling every day, but it does need done every day. So you can continue to build upon the margin. So you can then take on the challenges of the goals that you want to achieve in your life. So the best way to get into the meat and potato type of self-care is to create a schedule or checklist or create as many ideas of types of meat and potato self-care that you can think of. And then every day, do one of them. It doesn't even take time. It's actually really fast. So one of the easiest ways to do self-care real quick is if you run across a meme or a joke that you like on social media, maybe Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. Okay, screenshot it and send it as a mass text to like 10 good friends. And then just enjoy the goofy conversation that builds from that. Okay? So I sent somebody a picture the other day. It was a meme of a picture of bats that somebody flipped over. So instead of the bats like being upside down, the bats were actually upright. and it said it looked like they were having a wicked dance party. Okay, so the bats actually did look like they were having like a dance off, which was ridiculous. So I sent it to a couple friends, and here one of the friends reminded me that I actually finished second place when I was in the 11th grade in a dance competition, and I actually finished second place in the voting for high school of like best dancer. So we were dying laughing about just the stupidity of that, and just the fun of dancing and just enjoying those things in life. Like I once went to a bar in West Virginia and actually got kicked out. And so I'm like lifetime banned from a bar in West Virginia, and we'll save that story for probably never. But it brought up fun memories of of the younger days. So when I had more energy, but it was cool. So just taking 1 minute to send that mass text brought up a lot of fun and memories and conversations with some good friends. So that's something you can do that's really quick and easy. You can even write a letter or an email expressing like appreciation for someone in your life who's done nice things for you. That makes you feel good. It'll make you feel good that you know they're going to feel good. And that only takes maybe 5 minutes. Just writing something like, hey, I appreciate you. I remember when you did such and such for me. It made a big difference in my life. And I just want to say thank you. That's it. Hit send. Done. So things that like it doesn't take astronomical efforts. It doesn't take an hour every day. It can be done actually relatively